Hi everybody, it's Wednesday again here at DeFebo's Market. Today we're going to be doing some peanut butter and jelly bars. So we're just going to kind of jump right in today. I've got half a pound of butter that's at room temperature in my stand mixer with my paddle attachment. So I'm going to combine that butter with 1.5 cups of sugar. And we're going to let this whip up till it's a nice light yellow color. Again, you really want to make sure that butter is at room temperature. If not, it's really not going to get that creamy consistency that you're looking for, and that's really important here when we're making our dough. So what we're starting here is we're going to do a layer of our peanut butter kind of shortbread dough, and then we're going to layer it with some jam and then some other dough on top. So this is what I'm starting with right now. So I'm going to whip that up nice and fluffy here, and it doesn't take too long. And once this gets that nice light color, I've got 2 eggs. Again, ideally at room temp. And I'm going to turn that mixer down just a little bit, and I'm going to incorporate these eggs one at a time.
Stephanie Ferris is watching.
Who's watching?
Stephanie Ferris.
Hi, Stephanie Ferris. Thank you for watching. All right, I got that second egg right in there. I'm just going to mix that till it's incorporated. And like we talked about before, since I don't have any flour or any gluten in here right now, you can't overmix what we've got in the mixer, so don't worry about that. I am going to scrape those sides just so everything gets incorporated evenly.
So is this a gluten-free recipe?
It can be. So how I'm making it today is not gluten-free, but what you could definitely do is switch out your regular flour for a gluten-free flour. I tend to use Cup for Cup, which is a nice brand. So yeah, you could definitely make this a gluten-free dessert, or if you want to do it kind of like an energy bar, you could do that as well.
Just some oats? Is that like a possibility?
You could add gluten-free oats to it, but you would definitely want to use a gluten-free flour in replace of your regular all-purpose flour.
We've got chocolate molasses,
We got a little group today. I like that. Alrighty, so I've got those eggs, my sugar and my butter incorporated here, and it's a nice yellow color. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add 1.5 cups of peanut butter. Now, totally your preference if you'd like. You can use a chunky peanut butter if you like. That'll just add a nice texture to your dough, which is great. I've got a creamy peanut butter here, and I'm actually going to add some peanuts to this batter just because I do have that creamy peanut butter versus a chunky. But again, total preference there for you. And I am using, I want to mention, a unsalted butter. This way you can really control how much salt goes into this. With the peanuts can be a little salty if you're using something, if you're using a chopped peanut that's already salted. This way, like I said, you can really control how much salt goes in there. So I'm going to give that a mix. You may, if you'd like. Come on over, Kelly. And while this mixes, I'm going to add the 2 teaspoons of vanilla extract right in there. So as you can see, again, we can't overmix this this batter because there's no gluten yet incorporated. I'm going to stop that and just scrape those sides down just so all that peanut butter gets really well incorporated. And the next thing I'm going to do is now I'm going to add my peanuts. So I've got about 3/4 cup of chopped peanuts. I am going to reserve some just for the topping, so I'm not going to add all these in. Again, if you had a chunky peanut butter, you could skip this step and just have your chunky peanut butter give you that texture. But like I said, since I don't have that, I'm going to add those peanuts in just to give a nice little crunch. Just until combined. And now I'm going to add my dry ingredients. So I've got 2 cups of flour. Again, if you doing this gluten-free, here's where you would substitute this out for gluten-free flour. I've got 2 teaspoons of salt and 1 teaspoon of baking powder. And for this recipe, I can just add this right in. And I've already sifted my flour. So I'm just gonna add all this in together here. And now I'm just gonna mix this until it's just kind of come together. This will be a pretty sticky dough, so it's not gonna form a ball or anything like that. I'm just gonna mix it till, like I said, really it's just combined. You might still see a little bit of flour here and there, and that's totally okay. You just don't wanna over mix it too much where then your dough gets tough. And if you're finding that with whatever recipe you're using, if your if your end product is too tough, cakes, muffins, biscuits, anything like that, you're over mixing. So just something to think about for your other recipes you might be doing at home. So I'm going to scrape this off here, and we're actually going to line our pan with the majority batter. And Kelly, I'll show you how this looks here in the bowl. It's almost similar to a cookie batter consistency. So that's what it looks like there. So again, pretty sticky as far as the consistency goes. And I've got a 9 by 13.
What happens to the finished product if you overmix it?
It just gets really tough. I mean, it'll still turn out for you, but you won't have that light, fluffy, or that buttery kind of flakiness that you might be looking for.
So they can't hear me, so just answer the question.
Oh, sure. So Kelly asked me what happens if you overmix your product, whatever you're making, what will the end result be? Really depending on what you're making, like if you're making a cake and you overmix your batter, that cake's gonna be really tough and not light and airy or spongy that you're looking for. And when I say overmixing, that's when you're adding any type of gluten to your batter, so your flour. That's gonna make those gluten strands really start to activate, and once you get more gluten, that's when things start to become tough, which then that cake turns into more of a bread texture. So just to kind of give you an idea there. So really important not to overmix. So I've got, like I said, a 9 by 13 glass pan here. I've sprayed the pan, and then I've lined it with parchment, and I sprayed it again. Like we talked about, doesn't matter what you make, if you can't get it out of the pan, it's not gonna do you any good. So I'm going to grab some gloves here just to make my life a little easier. And I'm going to put the majority of this batter into the bottom. I'm gonna put just a little bit of flour on my hands just to, again, make it even easier. So like I said, this is a pretty sticky dough. And I'm just gonna spread this out. You wanna make sure it's pretty well even on the bottom here. And this is something you can definitely make ahead of time. You could even assemble this and then bake it later on. Because once you add in the jam that we'll do next, all those flavors are just gonna kind of incorporate with each other and make it even better. So we're just gonna do this here till it's nice and even and spread out. And this is the pan that I would suggest to make these bars in, the 9 by 13, because then you have your bottom crust is thin enough but thick enough where it's gonna hold up for you. I'm just gonna give this a nice little spread. Again, you could do this with a spatula. I just find that my hands are the best tool I have, so that's typically what I use when I can. So we've got that pan nicely lined, as even as we can. And now I've got some, I've got 1.5 cups of a baking jam. Now baking jam is a little bit different than something you might just get off the shelf. This is actually made to, be in the oven, bake with, versus, just like a Welch's or something like that. So pick up a nice baking jam. I've got raspberry here, but you can really kind of get creative with it. And if you wanted to do grape or strawberry or, you know, an apricot, an orange, whatever peanut butter and jelly sandwich you would eat, you could definitely, you know, add this in here.
And could you use regular jam?
You could use regular jam. It just might not hold up as well as a baking jam would be. The consistency is a little bit different. The sugars are a little bit different. In some of those other jams, with the sugar content, they tend to kind of liquefy, which you definitely want the jam to hold up here for you. So when you bite into it, it's that nice bite of the peanut butter and the jam. So yes, I would recommend a baking jam versus just a regular jam off the shelf.
Stephanie wants to know where you find baking jam.
So Stephanie, thank you for your question. So where you would find baking jam, you can find it at a specialty food store. A lot of the grocery stores now in their baking section do carry baking jams now. It's a little bit easier to find. So that's really where you can find them nowadays, is just any specialty food store, any specialty baking store, or a lot of the higher end grocery stores will carry them as well.
Like a fresh market?
Yeah, like a fresh market would carry something like that. I believe I've seen them in like Giant, because I know Giant has a nice little baking section.
Is that something we carry here?
We don't carry them here, unfortunately. Which we could start to carry some of the specialty baking things. But yeah, any of those stores you could probably find them there. I know I have in the past. So
Tanya says it looks great.
well, Miss Tanya, we're not done yet. So we spread our jam out nice and evenly, and I still have some jam that's spread out here, and then I've got the dough that's still left over. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take this leftover dough. We're going to get a little messy here, and I'm going to just kind of crumble it over the top. And it's totally fine if you see some of that jam through the crust. That's totally fine. It's going to add to the look in the end.
What if you're a chocoholic? Like, can you use Nutella?
If you're a chocoholic, yes, you could definitely use, you could do a nice layer of, you could completely omit the jam if you wanted, and you could do, you know, a layer of Nutella or some other, you know, chocolate spread. You could do a combination of that as well. You could almost,
Banana?
I was going to say you could do like, you know, Elvis Presley would do me proud, doing like a marshmallow and banana if you want to do something like that in the peanut butter. So yeah, you could really, you know, get creative with these guys. And that's how you'll find a lot of the recipes that we show on here. You can really kind of change it up and be creative with it depending on what your personal tastes are. This is just what I like, and you know, you might find that when you bake it at home, you like a little more peanut butter, or you like, you know, the chunky peanut butter versus, you know, having the creamy. It's totally up to you. I'm just kind of here showing you, and then you can run with it if you'd like. So I've got this kind of crumbled on top, and like I said, I like to be able to see the jam on top. These pieces are going to kind of bake and get all gooey, so they will spread a little bit. And then I'm going to take the remainder of the peanuts that we kind of saved back from the dough, and I'm going to just sprinkle them right on top. So now you've got that crunch on top. So again, what we've done, we got a layer of the peanut butter shortbread on the bottom. We've spread that layer of the raspberry jam on top, and then we've kind of crumbled, put bigger pieces of the peanut butter shortbread right on top as well with the chopped peanuts. Once you've got your bars layered, you're going to put this pan 350 degrees for about 45 minutes. Like we've talked about before, depending on your oven, just make sure you watch it till it's nice and golden brown. You know, my 350 degree oven might be a little bit hotter or cooler than yours. what I like to do is if it says 45 minutes, I'll set mine to 30. Check it, see where it's at, and then add however much time you think. It might need another 15 minutes, it might need another 10, or it might need another 20, depending on your oven temperature. But that's how I kind of bake. So once it's done and in the oven, you're gonna have a nice little bar that looks like this once you've cut it. And you've got a nice peanut butter and jelly bar. Now you could cut these into squares, or like I did into little triangles here. And you can make these as small or as little as you like. These are great little power bars if you'd like, but it's nice and ooey and gooey. And as you can see, as we talked about with the baking jam, that baking jam holds up nice. If you get, again, a non-baking jam, that jam might run out on you and you might not have that nice thick layer in there, but that's what you're looking for, that layer of that shortbread, that jam, and then the nice bits of the shortbread on top.
Yum.
So super yummy, yummy. If you're local, and we are gonna have these for sale, so come by and try one. But guys, thanks so much again for joining us here on Wednesday.
Let them know we'll post the recipe.
Yes, we'll be posting the recipe. Miss Kelly will be doing that for me. She'll be posting the recipe here shortly, so you'll be able to make these at home. And if you do, send us your pictures, send us your comments, your questions. We love to see them. We'll comment as much as we can. But other than that, we'll see you next time. Thanks so much from DeFibos. Have a great day. Bye, guys.